The Great Molasses Flood. In Boston, 1919, a tank holding 2.3 million gallons of molasses stood 50 feet tall in the north end. The steel was half the required thickness. The builder was a finance manager with no engineering experience. When it leaked from day one, the company's solution was to paint it brown to hide the molasses streaking down the sides. Locals collected free molasses with cups. On January 15th, temperature jumped from 2 to 43 degrees Fahrenheit overnight. At 12:30 p.m., rivets started shooting out like machine gun fire. The tank split open. A 25-foot wave of molasses moving at 35 miles per hour swept through the streets. It knocked buildings off foundations. It threw a truck into the harbor. When temperatures dropped that evening, the molasses turned solid, trapping victims like amber. Rescue workers needed salt water to cut through it. 21 people died, 150 were injured, horses stuck in the molasses had to be shot. Hyatt Regency Walkways. In Kansas City, 1981, 2 walkways hung suspended in the hotel lobby, 2nd floor and 4th floor. The original design called for single rods running from ceiling through both walkways. During construction, this changed to 2 separate rods. Now the 4th floor connections had to hold both walkways. Nobody recalculated the loads. On July 17th, there was a tea dance competition. 1,600 people packed the atrium. Some danced below, others crowded the walkways to watch. The 4th floor walkway had 56 people. It was already at 90% capacity. Then 16 more stepped on. The box beam connections started deforming. At 7:05 p.m., the 4th floor tore free and crashed onto the 2nd floor. Both fell 50 feet to the lobby. 114 died instantly. The connections could only handle 30% of the actual load. Sampoong Department Store. In Seoul, 1995, a building originally designed as a 4-story office building became a disaster waiting to happen. The owner changed it to a department store during construction. He removed support columns for open retail space. He added a 5th floor for restaurants. He put 3 15-ton air conditioners on the roof instead of the ground. They moved them across the roof with rollers, creating stress fractures. The columns were 60 centimeters instead of 80 centimeters. The concrete had too much water. The steel bars were 8 millimeters instead of 16 millimeters. On June 29th, cracks in the 5th floor ceiling grew to 10 centimeters. Management saw them that morning. They moved merchandise away from damaged areas but kept the store open. They didn't want to lose the day's revenue. At 5:52 p.m., the ceiling began sagging. At 5:57, they started evacuating only the 5th floor. There was no public announcement. At 6:05 p.m., the 5th floor collapsed onto the 4th. In 20 seconds, the entire south wing pancaked. 502 people died. Quebec Bridge. In 1907, the Quebec Bridge was supposed to be the longest cantilever bridge in the world. The engineer, Theodore Cooper, lived in New York and rarely visited the site. He increased the span from 1,600 to 1,800 feet without recalculating loads. He wanted to make it more impressive. By August, workers noticed steel members bending. Norman McClure took the next train to New York to warn Cooper personally. Cooper sent a telegram, "Stop work immediately." It was too late. At 5:32, while 86 workers were still on the bridge, a compression cord failed. 19,000 tons of steel collapsed into the St. Lawrence River in 15 seconds. 75 workers died. They tried again in 1916. They had a new design that was stronger. But while lifting the 5,000-ton center span, the lifting apparatus failed. The span dropped 150 feet. 13 workers went down with it. New London School. In Texas, 1937, the school board wanted to save money on heating. They tapped into oil company gas lines without permission. Natural gas back then had no odor. They hadn't started adding the smell yet. A massive leak developed in the basement crawl space. Nobody noticed it. On March 18th, at 3:17 p.m., shop class was in session. A teacher turned on an electric sander. The spark ignited 72,000 cubic feet of accumulated gas. The explosion was so powerful it lifted the entire roof structure, then dropped it onto the students. Bodies landed hundreds of feet away. 295 died, mostly children between 9 and 17. Because of this disaster, they started adding mercaptan, that rotten egg smell, to natural gas. St. Francis Dam. In Los Angeles, 1928, William Mulholland built a dam to prove his engineering genius. He personally inspected the site, ignoring geological surveys showing unstable schist rock. The dam was 200 feet high, holding 12.4 billion gallons. Cracks appeared immediately. Mulholland inspected them the morning of March 12th. He declared them safe. 3 minutes before midnight, the dam failed. A 140-foot wall of water roared down San Francisco Canyon. It traveled 54 miles to the ocean, destroying everything. Entire towns vanished. 431 people died. Concrete chunks weighing 10,000 tons were found half a mile downstream. At the inquiry, Mulholland's last public words were, "I envy the dead." Grenfell Tower. In London, 2017, officials wanted to improve the building's appearance, so they wrapped it in aluminum composite cladding. The core was polyethylene, basically plastic. It was cheaper than fire-resistant alternatives by £300,000. On June 14th, at 2:54 a.m., a hotpoint refrigerator caught fire on the 4th floor. It should have been contained to that apartment, but flames reached the cladding through the window. The plastic core ignited. Fire raced up the outside of the building like it was doused in gasoline. It went from 4th floor to top floor in 12 minutes. Residents were told to stay put, standard advice for tower fires. They followed it while flames surrounded them. The single stairwell filled with toxic black smoke. Fire doors didn't close properly. 72 people died. Surfside Condominium. At Champlain Towers South in Florida, 2021, residents had complained for years. There was water in the garage, there were cracks in the concrete, the pool deck's waterproofing failed in the 1990s. For 3 decades, chlorinated water ate through the rebar. Engineers warned about major structural damage. Nothing was done about it. On June 24th at 1:22 a.m., the pool deck collapsed into the garage. Residents heard it and called relatives. 7 minutes later, the central section of the building dropped. Then the rest followed. 98 people died in their beds. The security camera shows the building there, then gone in 12 seconds. Some victims had been on the phone when it happened. The calls just cut off. Vajont Dam. In Italy, 1963, the dam itself never failed. It's still standing today. The problem was Monte Toc beside it. Engineers knew the mountain was unstable. There were ancient landslide deposits. They filled the reservoir anyway. On October 9th at 9:39 p.m., after weeks of rain, 260 million cubic meters of mountain, a piece 1 mile wide, slid into the reservoir in 30 seconds. It hit the water at 70 miles per hour. The wave went over the dam like a tsunami, still 70 meters high on the other side. It obliterated 5 villages in the valley below. Longarone was erased, only the church bell tower remained. 1,917 people died in 2 minutes. When rescuers arrived, they couldn't find the villages. There was just mud and scattered concrete where towns had been.